Hello. Welcome to Internet TCI, our monthly program where we explore the global Internet. My name is Rich Wiggins, and I'm speaking to you from East Lansing, Michigan. As always, I'd like to introduce my partner in crime, Chuck Severance.
Well, thanks, Rich. Tonight, the theme of the show is Java. Java is the hot language that is sweeping the internet applications, internet terminals, Java, Java, Java. That's all you hear. So our regular viewers, one of your goals is to count the number of times the word Java is said during this program. We have some gadgets on the set that we don't normally have. We actually have a Java station from Sun Microsystems. So this is a beta hardware, and we sort of got this from our local Sun Microsystems rep, and he's going to come on the show later, and we're going to sort of have a little three-person discussion about Java. But before we get to that, tell me what's new on the internet, Rich.
Thank you, Java the Hutt.
There you go. 6.
You're keeping count yourself. Well, you know, several times we've talked about Alta Vista, and we've explained how easy it is to go to the wrong place when you're trying to find Alta Vista. Alta Vista is a service of Digital Equipment Corporation, and you would think, well, altavista.digital.com is reasonable, but sometimes you might accidentally try www.altavista.com. Right. And when you go there, it turns out it's an internet consulting firm. And you know, you go, well, maybe these people are actually happy because there's 20 million transactions a day going off to Alta Vista, the real one, so a large number of transactions are going to the wrong place, right? Well, it turns out in a recent issue of the Wall Street Journal, I thought these people would be happy with each other. It turns out the fellow who originally had Alta Vista was a fellow named Jack Marshall, and DEC and he made an arrangement where they said, okay, it's fine, you can go ahead and keep www.altavista.com, and we'll just go ahead and use it for our purposes. But like everything happens when things get popular in cyberspace, unfortunately they're in a bit of an argument now, and it turns out it looks like it's going to end up in court. DEC is saying you're doing too much internet-like activity, and words like confusingly similar and stuff like that are coming up.
Well, I just pulled it up.
Yeah, well, the page is still...
It's a search page.
That's
www.altavista.com.
And that's part of what they're upset about.
Oh, so they're making it look like a fake search engine.
Looks like it.
This is sort of a Alta Vista look-alike. Oh, no wonder they're a little bit grouchy.
Could be.
No wonder they're a little bit grouchy.
Yeah. So that's one item that's been going on. Now, we're always searching for new URLs and an odd place where you might find one. And I found one today at McDonald's. The bag that my food came in has a little ad for Space Jam. And this is the current movie that's out. And if you look at the bottom of the ad, here we go. Oh, you have to hop off to Space Jam now.
Come on, tell me.
Well, what do you think? Space Jam.
I like it when they make sense. There we are. Using our Java station here.
And there you have it.
There you have it.
So,
I haven't seen that yet.
So you
I'm
can't
sure I will
go to McDonald's without finding a URL. What have you found lately?
Well, the place I found a URL, now I should have had it marked. Oh, here we go. JCPenney. www.guess.
Jacques Penet.
Well, not quite.
Okay.
www.jcpenney.com. And so there's JCPenney's. And I'm told by people who regularly use the catalog, they haven't quite got the whole catalog up. And one of the things that, as I think about these shopping places, did I not hit enter here? As I think about these shopping places, oh, maybe I can type it. When I think about these shopping places, what I think they're starting to do is use the internet to sell a small subset of what they have in the store, and to me that's kind of frustrating because a local sort of mega grocery store, www.meyer.com, I saw in their ad, I saw a URL, and I thought this is great. I could go at 2 in the morning and get some milk and some bread and some whatever, but it turns out that what they have is fruit baskets and your sort of generic perfume and your generic gift kind of stuff. And so I kind of found that kind of frustrating. I'm looking for somewhere that you can shop for bread and milk and eggs.
And what do you want them to do? Deliver it over the internet?
No, to my house.
Oh, okay.
I want it delivered to my house. I mean, I'm a yuppie. I don't have any time. I need all time I can get.
Okay.
So what else do you have?
Well, speaking of examples of catalogs, since you bring that one up, there's a company called Hello Direct which sells really good telephone accessories and products, and they brag in their catalog that they've been on the web since 1994. I'll show you the URL here. It's not exactly what you might think it is. It's
Hello-Direct.
Hello-Direct. And what's neat is, I mean, you get this calendar catalog fairly frequently, and it's got all kinds of cool stuff in it. And as you just observed, there's less stuff on the website than there is in the catalog.
Yeah.
Now, my prediction over time is these catalog companies are going to realize, oops, that's a big mistake.
That's a horrible mistake.
It costs a lot to mail one of these catalogs out, right?
Right.
A website costs virtually nothing. Once you've invested in it, you can add additional pages, and it's not going to cost you anything. So what they ought to do over the long haul is they ought to send out slim little full-color, glossies with the key new products and a few featured products, and say, come to our website for the 600-page virtual catalog.
Especially if it's sort of a high nerd content kind of material, where there's going to be a lot of focus.
High nerd content?
Well, I mean, this is sort of electronics and stuff like that. It's high nerd
stuff you
content.
And I would like.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
Well, I was on the road, and in a future segment, we'll show the actual segment where I went to Europe this month. And I went to a friend of ours, Dave LeBeau, who lives in Switzerland.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Dave. And sitting in their kitchen was this. It's a magazine out of England called the Good Book Guide.
Okay.
And what it is, it's sort of a catalog of books. But it's not just a catalog of books. It's a catalog of books that they've reviewed, and these are good books that are good, meaning you don't get in here unless you're good. And if you look at the bottom of the page,
oh my goodness,
there is a small book, interestingly next to a sign that says "Spank Me." I don't know if that's random or not, but there is Internet for Everyone. And let me read the review of that very book.
Wow.
I know the author of that book, as a matter of fact. Let's see, where is it? In-depth book to keep the reference on your first visit, from the first visit onwards. It contains summaries of information available to zoology, to water sports. It describes different types of resources, email,
Well, that's lovely. Thank you.
Unlike most more technical books, it's well illustrated. So in
Do I get to keep
Switzerland,
this?
that's a gift, as a matter of fact.
Thank you.
And I brought one more gift for you. I had chocolate, and the chocolate got eaten by the time I made it to the show. I had a little metal car, and that turned into a Christmas present for my son. So I figured, what the heck, I'll just bring back some money. So here's some Swiss money for you.
What is the internet country code for Switzerland?
CH.
Well, I was giving a lecture about the internet and top-level domains and everything, and I asked somebody, why is it CH for Switzerland? And one answer was, well, that's what's on the license plate. And I go, no. And
but that's the good answer, because that's the ISO.
Another answer I got was, well, it's because of cheese, Swiss cheese. And the correct answer, of course, is?
Something about Confederation Helvetica.
Helvetian or something like that. It's their name for themselves.
Right.
What else you got, Chuck?
Well, the other thing that I sort of went to Europe questioning was, are they as internet nuts in Europe as we are in the United States? And the answer is, yes, they are. I mean, they are just as nuts as we are in the United States. And again, in a future episode, we'll talk about that. But I got, something from The Times. This is, there's the New York Times, and then this is The Times. So New York Times must be sort of an imitation of this one. But they got URLs throughout the thing, and, just sort of internet. So I thought that was pretty exciting.
Okay.
And the last thing I brought with me is an ad from Lansing State Journal here in Lansing, Michigan. And not to say anything bad against the Java station that we have here, but they're advertising at ABC Warehouse Web TV. I mean, this is sort of stick it in your living room, lean back, and surf the web. And that's $329. I mean, it's here. I mean, this isn't science fiction anymore. And
we'll have to play with one of those puppies.
yeah, I want to get my hands on one.
Okay.
So.
Well, I guess it's time to get rolling, huh?
Yeah, we got to move on to the Java parts of the show.
Okay.
In our Internet for Everyone segment, Rich begins our show-long obsession with Java. So, Rich, what do you have for us?
Well, we want to talk about just sort of an introduction about what the Java language is all about. Sun's view of Java is that it's a programming language for the World Wide Web, and they announced the Java language in May of 1995, with that being the purpose of the language. Actually, though, Java is much older than the World Wide Web. It's been around for several years. Originally, Java was intended to be a programming language for what are called embedded systems. And for instance, the much ballyhooed personal digital assistant was supposed to have Java as a language for operating those devices. Intelligent remote controls for television might have been another application for the early version of the Java language, or in fact any device that one wanted to make programmable. The code name for Java in those early days, before it was known as Java, was Oak. So what is Java now? What do we mean when we refer to the Java language? Well, first off, it's a programming language. So it's like other programming languages, languages like Pascal, Basic, C, or C++. It's most similar to the language C++, and when James Gosling and others at Sun were designing Java, they in fact used C++ as sort of a benchmark they were working against, and one of their goals was, let's do something that's as powerful as C++, but let's avoid some of the shortcomings of that language. Some fans of Java in fact call it C+++. Java is an example of an object-oriented language. By that we mean that programmers can create what are known as objects, and those objects can be reused, either within one set of programs or in large libraries of programs used by many programmers. The Java language was designed for portability. Here's how they accomplished it. It's an interpretive language, and it's designed for what's known as a virtual machine. So the language isn't really intended to be produced and compiled with a specific piece of hardware in mind. Instead, a person writes a Java program, and that program is run through a compiler, and what is produced is called a Java bytecode. Now that bytecode can be shipped off to any different kind of architecture anywhere on the internet. So if you're sitting somewhere on the internet and you point your web browser at a page that references a Java applet, you could be on a Power Mac, you could be on an Intel PC, you could be on a Sun workstation, you could be on any piece of hardware in any operating environment you want. In order for all of this to work though, every target piece of hardware, every architecture, has to have implemented on it an interpreter for that virtual machine. So software provides the bytecode interpreter that allows that program to execute on whatever target hardware we're talking about. And what this means in summary is that we have complete portability. A programmer can write a program once in the Java language and not worry about the specifics of the hardware or operating system architecture that that program is going to run on. And then, thanks to the magic of the bytecode interpreter and the virtual machine concept, the program can go on any of these different architectures, and the programmer doesn't have to rewrite the program. With Java, we use the word applets to describe what's going on in terms of delivering the program. So let's say you're sitting on a PC somewhere and you're running a web browser, and you've run across an HTML document, and somewhere in that document it wants to refer to a piece of Java programming. Well, it will have a statement that looks like this applet codebase equals, and then a reference to the specific code. That in turn causes the browser to go back off onto the web, go to a server somewhere, pick up the applet and bring it across the net to the user's workstation, where that applet will be executed and interpreted according to the rules we were talking about earlier. Let's talk about some of the concepts that apply to Java. We use this word applet to refer to one of these programs that's intended to be referenced in an HTML document. Now, applets are supposed to be delivered on demand, so you refer to a particular web page that references an applet, and without even doing any extra work at all, that applet is brought down to your workstation and it's executed on demand. We also use the term application, and when we refer to an application, we're saying that's a program written in the Java language for standalone execution. So Java is not just a language for delivering programs off to the user's desktop. It also could be thought of as a programming language for writing programs that might sit and execute on a server. There's another term that you might hear more about later on, and that's the word servlet. By that we mean the concept of sort of the opposite of an applet. That's a little program that might be created on your desktop machine, on your workstation, and actually sent back up to the server for execution. Now, you might not even write this program. We might have an intelligent client program on your workstation that, let's say, knows it wants to do a database query, and its way of formulating that query and getting it processed is it actually writes a little Java program, and that program would be sent back to the server for interpretive execution there. Now, that's kind of a futuristic concept. We're not really seeing a lot of that deployed right now, but it could be coming down the road. Some related terms to Java. Hot Java is the name of the first web browser that was written in the Java language. So Java is the language, Hot Java is the name of the browser that Sun came up with. More generally, this is referred to as an example of a reference implementation of some of the cool things that you can do in Java. Sticking with the theme of Java, Sun has coined the term Java Beans. Java Beans is a way of sort of extending Java to embrace the idea of what's called component architecture. And in this way, Java is positioned to compete with other component architectures like Microsoft's ActiveX or Corba or others. What this means is we can have sort of a whole programming library environment where you can sit and write to one particular programming universe, and you never worry about the operating system ever again. You don't think about whether you're writing for Windows or the Macintosh or what have you. You write for one generic environment for all these platforms. And finally, the term Java OS. Well, if we have this virtual machine concept where it's possible for us to write to a generic virtual machine, in some cases we may want to run on some hardware that doesn't have any other operating system. It doesn't have Windows or the Mac operating system or what have you. And so we need a native operating system to run in such hardware environments, and the Java OS is an example of that. When we talk about the Java Station later, we'll talk more about the Java OS operating system. Another term you should know about is JavaScript. When Java was first announced, Netscape immediately embraced it and said, this is great stuff, we think it's really cool. And so they said, we ought to come up with a programming language that allows actual embedding of code within an HTML document. And they came up with what they called LiveScript. They soon renamed it as JavaScript. And so rather than having a program that is semi-compiled off on the server and delivered as one entire chunk as an applet on demand, you literally just put little pieces of code right within your HTML. So you might say that JavaScript is in some ways less powerful than the Java language, but in other ways it's more accessible to a large range of programmers. If you see a little snippet of JavaScript programming in an HTML document, you can simply cut and paste it into your own document, and you've got a little piece of JavaScript that you can work with. Security, a big question with Java. One wonders, can you trust programs that you download and have downloaded on your behalf sort of magically whenever you visit web pages? Now, Sun has tried to deal with this by coming up with sort of a sandbox environment. What they mean by this is a Java applet running on your workstation normally has very few things they can actually do on your computer. They can't go off and write to your hard disk or even read from your hard disk. It's very limited in terms of what it can actually accomplish. So that may solve some of the security concerns, but in other ways that may cripple it so that you can't do all the fancy stuff you might want to do. It's sort of a double-edged sword. One way that Sun wants to deal with the issue of security is to come up with an idea of trusted repositories. And what they mean by that is a number of different companies that we have faith in, institutions that we can trust, will sort of serve as banks where you can store applets and have them vetted by people. They look over the applet and say, no, this doesn't do anything destructive. And then they'll apply digital signatures to the problem. So when you physically download one of these applets, you'll be able to authenticate that, yes, this really did come from the place I thought it came from, and I know therefore that it's a safe program to execute. So what can Java do in summary? It can do lots of things for us. It can animate a web page, it can make things more exciting, it can provide much more sophisticated interactivity, and we'll see more of that later on in this program. It can serve as a way that we can connect a web server off to existing databases, an alternative to other schemes for doing that. It can liberate our programmers from worrying about what the target operating systems are that they're programming for. And potentially, if you buy into all of the hype, it can bring network computing into its own. It can end the dominance of the Windows and Intel standard, and it might even eliminate bloatware. We don't have to install shelves full of CDs of software on our desk in anticipation that someday we might perhaps use one little piece of those CDs that we've got on our shelf. So in the long run, Java can do just about everything, it seems.
Well, that was a very interesting presentation. I got a whole bunch of questions. Most of them I'm going to hold till the three of us are talking about it. The one thing that I'll sort of focus on is you talked about Java could challenge the dominance of the Microsoft Intel. It occurs to me that if the killer apps, the really slick applications that people want are written in Java, then if they want to go buy a B box, which is the sort of Macintosh little tiny thing, and let's say that company has a 1% market share and it's enough to keep that company running, they'll be able to run all their nifty their word processing and their spreadsheets in Java and then do whatever they want with the rest of the computer. Today, your hardware is driven by your need to do your word processing, your Excel, your da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so if the sort of let's say the 75% applications are in Java, then there can be a whole bunch of computer companies that can be very successful.
There are a lot of people who have made observations that What computer software needs to be is not more powerful and more functional, but easier to administer and easier to use.
Sure.
Cliff Stahl is a big advocate of that point of view. You don't need 99% of what Microsoft Excel can do for you. Most of the time you need 1% of what it can do. And if that functionality can be implemented in a nice portable way where other functionality that you need can be downloaded on demand, I don't know, it'll be interesting to watch.
Is that the first time that you've agreed with Cliff Stahl?
I think it is.
Oh, okay.
In last month's episode of Internet TCI, we saw a winner of the Java Cup contest, an application written by somebody at the University of British Columbia. This month we're going to see two applets written first by Kelly Liu and by Daniel List. And let's see what their applications do for us.
My name is Kelly, and I just learned Java, and on the way I did this traffic simulation.
And how long did it take you to do the traffic simulation?
I just work at that after work, so every night for 2 hours, took me 2 weeks to
What's your real job?
Well, my real job is writing computer engineering simulation program.
Oh, okay.
And,
well, show me this applet. What does it do?
It simulates the intersection traffic. You see the car can only go through when the lights allowed. For the red light, you have to stop even if there's no car. At each intersection, you have to wait your turn, and you can change the period schedule for each traffic intersection. Right now, it's kind of randomly changed, but in the future, you can use that to optimize the traffic flow and control the intersection traffic light.
Okay, now you've got a slightly different one that uses stop signs.
Yeah, this just simulates the stop sign traffic. Of course, with stop sign, you got a maximum traffic flow, but it has more possibility to get an accident because the car just running through.
Okay, now on the screen here it says Stop California. Why does it say that?
Because this is just a simplified simulation. So the car just rolling over without real stop if there's no car.
So you live in Massachusetts and you're making a statement about people in California, right?
Well, I've already heard when I drive without stop rolling over the stop sign, people say this is a California style. And,
so your simulation takes into account that people don't follow the law. That's
yeah.
That's very good. That's very clever.
It's not a...
Do you think you'll stay with your current job, or do you think you'll get a new job as a traffic engineer?
Yeah, if I have a chance, I may do some more interesting thing. It doesn't have to quit my job. I may do that just with my job. This traffic simulation, I always like to do that. Because everyone deals with that every day. Maybe we can really control our traffic and spend less time on road.
Well, that's very interesting. It's a great applet. Congratulations on winning.
Thanks.
My name is Daniel List. I was one of the programmers who helped develop this project. This is an interactive information kiosk that's at the University of Lausanne in Lausanne, Switzerland. It's part of a partnership between the University of Lausanne and Singularis Communication. It offers a number of services to the campus community, to the faculty, staff, students, and visitors to the campus. Things like, this is a directory of people on the campus. So for instance, if you search for someone in this directory, it updates with each click. Media Minion, the president of Singularis Communication, there you can find information about him, where his office is located on campus, pictures of the building even, other information, telephone number in case you'd want to call him. This mapping module is zoomable. You can zoom back out. This is the city of Lausanne in Switzerland. Geneva is about a half hour off that way. And you can go back down into it. We have, for one of the buildings, the main building where the actual physical kiosk that the students can use is located, we have more detailed information, including networks, including each of the different floors in that building. Back to the main screen, second service that's offered is a directory of events that are taking place on campus. Maintenant, which means now in French, are things that are going on right now as we speak, and aujourd'hui are things that are happening sometime today. Again, by clicking on one of these, you can get more information about them. But first, let's go into Memento, which is a directory of events that you can search a bit more efficiently than that one out in front. So for instance, if you want to find out what's happening in Setsemen this week in sciences, here's a list of what's going on. You can select one of those, and it'll show you what building it's located in, who's doing it, where they're from, what time it is, that sort of thing. Third service that's offered is an organizational chart of the departments available at the university. So for instance, if you're interested in the sciences, the Department of Biology, here's the different sub-departments or different offices available. So here's Institute to Animal Biology, and it shows you again where it is, gives you phone and fax number and stuff like that. It makes it easy for students and for visitors to the campus to find what they're looking for. The last module is a mapping system, so that, for instance, if you're searching for a specific lecture hall in that main building, it'll show you where that is. Vous êtes ici, that means you are here. That's where the actual kiosk is located. And if you hold on for a second, there'll be a picture of the kiosk coming up over here. The kiosk. Right? And so according to this map, you need to go down one floor because it's on the first floor, not the second. Right? Just a little, one additional feature. Prochaine Sol, that's next metro. That is, there's a metro station just outside the main building where this kiosk is located, and that's a countdown to when the next metro is coming. The time turns red when you have to run to make it, when you've got 1 minute left, and the metros really do run on time in Switzerland. Right now, this is designed for a French-speaking audience, so you'll notice everything on here is in French. But just to make it a little easier for the judges here at the at the Java Cup, we made it so that whenever you move the mouse over something, it gives you an English translation along the status bar. The idea in doing this wasn't exactly to distribute exactly this service over the web, but to sort of have a prototype, gain some experience and a feel for how you can distribute information services over the web, and then to eventually take that and extend it through things like local networks, through things like cable modems, to provide very personalized services to people, you know, information about their university, their company, their community, things like that, that would be very targeted and very relevant to the people who need that information.
Well, Rich, that's pretty neat. That Cyber One thing that the second fellow did, I'm hard-pressed to understand why that didn't win above the other one that we looked at.
It did.
That's the Cyber One is the number
overall
one
winner.
Oh, okay. I was mistaken. I thought that the one we
they had a whole bunch of different categories. And
okay, because that is something else.
In fact, the rumor I heard at the Java One conference was that going back to Switzerland, he had some problems with tax issues because he won so much value.
Well, you have to say you're carrying more than 10,000 of stuff.
Yeah.
And so wow, that's pretty neat.
It's a pretty neat application in contrast to what we looked at last month, which was a simple map application that anybody could run on anybody's desktop.
Right.
This is intended for standalone kiosks, and as he mentioned, this stuff gets downloaded at 4 in the morning once a day.
Right.
But what's neat about that is on MSU's campus, for instance, we have a kiosk that was developed several years ago and prepared for Laserdisc.
Right.
And now it's out of date. A campus doesn't sit still. Things change pretty quickly. And with this system, you could have a bunch of kiosks around campus, but because the stuff's all in Java, you can update the pieces of it that need to change. For instance, he showed looking up somebody in the faculty directory.
Right.
You could have monthly, weekly, daily updates to that database.
I mean, if you think about it, even at 28.8, you said that's like about 10 megabytes to download that?
Right.
Because it's all compressed up real tight. If you think about it, even in a 28.8 modem, you can pull 10 megabytes in an hour and a half or so. You know, I mean, a megabyte comes about 10,
but on a campus network in a kiosk environment.
But even a kiosk that's sort of in a remote location, you could plug a phone modem in the back at 2 in the morning.
And at 2 in the morning.
Download 10 megabytes of stuff. It's done by 3 in the morning, and away you go. So that is a neat concept. It's like a CD-ROM at some level.
And what was really neat was not only, a point that he made to me was that not only was he a winner in this competition, but that Sun was a winner. Sun announced this language in May of '95, and they wanted to really launch this in a big way. So this contest was a way to get the smartest people on the planet writing really cool applets really quickly. And the other thing that Sun has done that was really smart is all of these applets are available for other people to build on as examples. That was one of the rules of the contest.
Right.
You can go and get the code, and you can write another applet that's based on this same idea.
Well, we've got one of the applets here. We've got the traffic simulation applet. We may go to the Cyber 1 applet later in the show. So, sort of, tell me a little bit about this applet.
Well, the purpose of this, of course, is we have a steady stream of cars coming in from all the streets.
Right.
And you're the traffic engineer, and you have ways that you can manipulate the periodicity of the traffic lights. And if you look at that little graph down there,
right
the
here.
traffic flow, by manipulating the periodicity, you're trying to come up with the highest overall traffic flow that you can come up with.
I noticed that on tape, her traffic flow was like about 25, and this is around 10. I don't know what to do here.
Do you think she has a secret button she clicks that
Well,
says,
yeah, she probably just played with it a little more. She wrote the program, so she knows the cheat codes, to use Sega terminology. So I'll go to a stop sign.
And notice this says Stop California. I really loved her little thing about the California stop means, well, if there's no car and you see it, you just go right on through the stop sign. And her argument was that using the stop sign actually maximizes traffic flow, but occasionally people crash their cars. So.
Simulation seems like it's sort of the classic, a traffic simulation is sort of the classic simulation that everybody does, because it's so intuitive. You can see those cars, you say, okay, I understand.
But what's neat about this is a lot of the simulations people have done in the past haven't been graphical, so you feed in a lot of data, and you get some numbers out. You may get that graph out that shows the traffic flow. Here we see the traffic flow, and again, it's in the Java language, so anybody anywhere can go and run this applet and see the same thing that we're seeing.
The stop signs are doing better.
That was her argument.
Right.
For certain traffic patterns, you come out
I
better.
bet if you make the traffic heavier, the stop signs kind of don't do so well.
Probably
I
true.
bet light traffic, they get through quicker.
And she's probably working on another version of the applet where an ambulance comes along and hauls you away after the accident, right?
Okay.
Okay, well, on with the show. Last week I had the privilege of talking to a library organization here in Michigan, and the folks at Sun were kind enough to loan me a Java station. And when I had it in my hot little hands, I was talking to Mr. Severance about it. I'm sorry, Dr. Severance about it. And I said, you know what? I think this box is probably using this new Java chip that I saw last June when I was out in California. And Chuck said, no, 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 you're crazy. They wouldn't be able to engineer that fast. What I think they've done is they've gone and they've taken the guts of a Spark station and repackaged that and put it in a little box, and then it's able to use the Java virtual machine implementation that's already available for the Spark station. So, who's right?
Well, sorry to say, but I think Chuck technically is correct.
I say we take it apart.
Okay.
This is the, well, why don't you go ahead and introduce your little box here.
Yeah, basically what we did is we took existing technology. You see, this is basically a CD-ROM or external disk storage unit.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we just put our Java logo on the front, right, Java Station. This is actually a beta unit, by the way, and we're lucky to have the Java logo on there. And if Chuck will hold that up, we'll show you inside. Basically, this one's large because we actually have a power supply. If you look, the big round chip here is our MicroSpark 2 chip, which is an existing chip technology, so Chuck was right. It was a little bit easier for us to implement.
And that's what Rich thought would be the Java chip.
Which, by the way, we will have what we call a Pico Java within the year. So we will have the OS in a flash memory PROM with a Pico Java chip. Okay.
Wow.
This unit here actually has a power supply. We have a future version that's coming out in December, which will actually be field customer ship, and that will be convection cooled. No moving parts, basically.
The thing that this is sort of like a computer, but it's not like a computer, because I can kind of bang it on, and not feel bad banging it on a table, so that's kind of...
Yeah, but he feels bad, so you better stop.
Because you only got one of them. But,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no hard disk in there.
Right. Standard PC memory.
Just, yeah, it's just...
Standard PC keyboard, Super VGA monitor.
And how much memory?
You can get up to 64 megabytes. Today we recognize 16 and 32 megabyte SIMs.
And you said the Java OS that loads into this takes 2 megabytes.
Correct. It's just over 2 megabytes, the entire OS.
Now, is this running Unix?
Well, no, it's not. It's running Java OS.
Okay, so it's
Right.
not really Unix. It's not sort of a Unix thing. It's running a unique
No,
OS.
This is Java OS. Basically, what we do is, this is the first version. Today, you have to boot this off a Sun server. next version out, which will be Java Station 2, this is Java Station 1, will have a flash memory which has Java OS on it, PCMCIA card you plug in with Java OS on it, which is upgradable
over the net.
Over the net.
Okay.
Exactly.
So then you're a little more like the kind of this idea of you just drop it in and away you go.
Right.
But Chuck, following up on that theme you were raising, the idea of, it's a sturdy little box and you don't have to worry about it too much. Let's imagine microlabs. Think for a second about all that people do on a campus like Michigan State to build a microlab.
Or in a business like, say,
or in a business setting. You go to a lot of effort to take the personal computer and undo it. Because you don't want people wandering in and messing with what's on the hard disk and updating the software and fiddling around and getting viruses and everything. We don't have a hard disk at all on this thing.
Yep.
And the idea is you can have a fleet of those deployed, and the operating system and everything is either later on going to be in flash ROM, right now it's downloaded, and it's administered centrally.
Right, that's one of the biggest selling points, is that it's a zero admin client. Basically, you stick it out anywhere, and it basically runs. If it doesn't, you replace it, kind of like your VCR.
If you had to guess what company or organization was going to buy the first 1,000 of these, what kind of place is going to buy these first, do you think?
Well, I can mention a company that has bought thousands of them already.
Oh, really?
Yes, they British Telecom, by the way, which recently bought out MCI, investing heavily in the Java future. They see not as a replacement for a PC, but they have a lot of terminal emulation packages that they run, and specific applications that their operators run. They don't need the full PC suite of bloatware, we call it.
Right.
So they run a thin client with a beefed up server, and that way you get access from anywhere in the world, same access. And you can run the application that you need specifically for that location from your corporate headquarters. So
pretty neat, pretty neat. So would you say that secretaries are going to have them, or sort of clerk receptionists, or people doing their phone servicing? I mean, what kind of folk?
Well, certainly we see 3270 emulation as a big market for us. There are millions and millions of 3270 terminal people out there in the commercial arena. They basically need more functionality, but they don't want to invest in a PC because there's a zero admin client there. Today we can give them a Java station, give them zero admin client, and give them the additional functionality of, their 3270 plus, the whole web here, like we've shown today. That's
last month, Chuck asked me when I was off at this Java 1 conference, did I notice any business applications, something similar to Microsoft Word coming out on this platform, and I wasn't aware of it. But you're aware of a draw program that's available already?
Right. I think we can show a draw program later, and maybe in the surfing web section. But basically, when we release these to field customer ship, December 18th, by the way, they will come bundled with Applix and Corel, which include Applix includes a word processor, a spreadsheet, a database, and an email. And Corel includes a word processor and a spreadsheet. And these are all written in Java. So they are what we call Java applets. Just gives you everything, word processor.
I want to sort of throw out a couple of statements and see what the reaction is. One of the things that strikes me as an interesting observation is that Java is an interpreted language, and that's one of the things that leads towards its portability, or at least the bytecodes are somewhat interpreted. And that means it can run, as you said in your Internet for Everyone segment, on pretty much anything. And my observation, I'd like you both to react to it, is that we finally have processors that are fast enough that we can tolerate interpreted code. And what do you think of that?
I think that's a good point, because you do hear the word Java and the word slow mentioned together every once in a while. And one of the big efforts of the team at Sun and elsewhere is to get things faster. Maybe you could comment a little bit about how they're...
Well, we see, definitely there is the interpretation issue. However, as Chuck says, the processors are much faster. For instance, today we see as the bottleneck not the processor itself, but the amount of time it takes to get the applications or applets to the device, whether that's a PC or a Java station. And then once it's on the system, you don't really have that much of a performance issue, because Java is code-wise very small compared to a feature-rich C++ program like Microsoft Excel or something like that.
The next sort of thing I want to sort of throw out and see your reaction is About 5 years ago, I went to the Open Software Foundation, OSF, and they had this product called ANDF, which is Architecture Neutral Distribution Format. And the dream of that was you go buy shrink-wrap software at Best Buy or wherever, and instead of buying Mac software or PC software or B-Box software or NEX software, you buy ANDF software, and as part of the installation, it would sort of post-compile it to the proper architecture. And when I came back from that, I thought, oh, the future of computing is coming. Because if you think about the things that we have, you go to Best Buy and you got the PC section and the Mac section. And a few years ago, the Mac section had all the good stuff and the PC section had all the yucky stuff, and now the PC section has all the good stuff. Right. But if you think about it, if Java really catches, you come back in 5 years and you'll have a whole bunch of Java things. You can go buy the Java version and there won't be any other versions. I mean, where do you see that?
Well, I mean, it's funny you should mention that. Java itself is 500, maybe 600 days old now.
Right, that's a good way to put it. 500 days old.
Which is very young for any, well, I mean, computer years are fast anyway, but there are over 200,000 plus Java programmers out in the world. In comparison, Microsoft has about 400,000 writing to the Wintel world. We call it Windows Intel. So you see in just over a year, you've got half the code base is now writing Java. And think about it, if you're an independent software vendor, you have to support Windows 3.1.1, Windows NT, Windows 95, Unix, Solaris, HPUX. If you want to sell to the full spectrum, gee, that's 80% of your development cost for most companies is porting to different platforms.
Yep.
If you can focus in on one platform, say Java, that runs everywhere, you take 80% of your resources and funnel it into what? Added functionality, new products, maybe get rid of some people and make more of a profit.
Or sell it cheaper.
Sell it
for half the price, too, and flood the market.
Well, one point that James Gosling, the developer of Java, made was that we have all these component architectures that we were talking about earlier, things like Corba and ActiveX and so forth. And he said, isn't it funny that we have more component architectures now than there are real environments that they're supposed to replace? And it would be nice if we could get to one, or maybe one or two.
Coming to that, we could have a long time ago created this set of APIs that we forced every computer vendor to create that did sound and audio and whatever, but that wasn't going to happen. And I think in some ways the browsers and the internet have forced sort of the creation of universal software that's going to be on every computer.
Yeah.
And Java builds on that sort of in the next step. Everybody has to be able to display a GIF now. I mean, they can't, the computer company's out of business if they can't display a GIF. So Java just comes along and says, oh, here's the subroutine call to display a GIF.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Cliff Lynch, in one of our earlier interviews, described HTML in the web browser as the standard virtual terminal for the internet. And what you're saying is Java is the standard virtual language, the programming language for the internet, which is the way they've been pitching it for a year now. Or how many days? 500 and...
Whatever.
And the other thing is, if you look at successful programming languages, it's not necessarily the syntax of the language, but the library routines that come along with it. And now we have an audio play, and we got all this stuff. So that's real exciting to me.
The nice thing about that too, is that it's free technology at this point. And that was Sun's biggest push, especially with the Java Cup, is get the technology out there to as many people as you can, make it free, and then people will write to it.
Now, one more point, talk about object-oriented programming. To me, as I've watched and taught object-oriented programming classes, listened to people who try to do real programs in object-oriented programming, two languages, Smalltalk and C++. Smalltalk is sort of this slow interpreted language, but it's really object-oriented. C++ is a fast compiled language, but it sort of tries to be object-oriented, but it really isn't. And people who want to do real object-oriented things sometimes find C++ limiting. And what I see in Java is like together. And being an interpreted language is the key that makes it much more object-oriented, potentially, than C++. I mean, have you heard that from other folk?
Well, certainly that Java is not as feature-rich as C++. But, let me remind you that the best technology doesn't always win.
Right.
And, TCP/IP, for instance, is the standard now. Before was the de facto standard, and before that was,
Now wait a minute. I'm going to give you a chance to clarify that point you just made. Which are you referring to as the best technology?
Well, we'll have to wait a couple of years and see what really happens. But
well, based on the shirt you're wearing, I think you probably think Java is pretty good technology.
Right. Sun is definitely investing in Java heavily.
One other thing, and going back to the hype. Talk about the hype of Java versus reality. When Java first came out, we'd sit here on this set and we'd say, man, Java's a lot of, it's getting a lot of ink and da-da-da, da-da-da, and the thing about it is I thought that, as a nerd, I thought that's a bad thing for it to get all this hype. But it occurs to me that's what's forced Java to get on every single platform, is the hype. And so whether it's technically superior or not, we don't have to argue that. What's happened is the hype is forcing it to go everywhere. And that is going to benefit us.
Well, one of the Sun vice presidents, I probably quoted him before, at Java 1 said URL stands for ubiquity first, revenue later.
Right.
It's get it out there, get everyone using it, and then figure out how you're going to make money off of it.
Right.
It kind of puts everybody on a level playing field. I think what you've seen in the past is a dominance in the Wintel space. You put everybody on a level playing field, you get better technology, better prices, and you got a lot of companies trying to do this.
And if you guys don't succeed with the technology, I mean, you got some wonderful looking coffee mugs and hats, and you sell these shirts.
Right. Well, we actually have servers too. The Java Station is a cool thing, but we
you're still selling other hardware.
That's right.
Okay.
So, well, any last comments that we didn't cover?
Well, I think that we're really looking forward to having Java stations out there everywhere.
I want one at home.
Me too. Well, thanks for joining us, Don.
Thanks, Chuck.
Good to be on the show.
Now let's see what's happening in the news of the net. First off, the Clinton administration has relaxed its policy towards exporting of encryption. In the past, U.S. policy has called encryption software a form of weapon. Now, the new policy will allow the export of software that has key lengths in excess of 40 bits. The policy still requires a scheme for key escrow. This means that a trusted third party will hold the keys that allow the unlocking of any data. And that means that the government could decode data once they're provided those keys. Many observers feel that the current and past policies towards encryption have hampered the competitiveness of American software companies. CompuServe is considering pulling out of Germany. Germany is continuing to press for the censorship of various internet news groups that may have offensive material, including groups that might carry pornography, neo-Nazi materials, and so forth. So CompuServe, in reaction, is considering taking an administrative unit out of the country. Microsoft is investing very heavily in online services and thus far is not earning. They've spent over $400 million in the past year on their various internet ventures, including MSNBC. They've announced they expect to earn no money on these internet ventures for several years, and this is according to a vice president of Microsoft. Some credit card information has been served openly on the web by mistake. A company sells some software called SoftCard, and this package was improperly installed by some internet vendors. What that meant was the credit card information that had been typed in by customers was in a directory that was immediately served anywhere by the web server. The information therefore was directly viewable by anyone who was browsing that website. And the president of the software company says this was an installation error. We may be moving to a world where we have a standard price for unlimited internet access. America Online has announced a $19.95 per month plan for unlimited internet access. This seems to be a reaction to other services, such as a large number of local internet service providers, some national internet service providers, and AT&T and other phone companies that provide internet access. Some AOL users did complain, though, that AOL had moved them from their original $9.95 basic plan by default to the new $19.95 plan, when perhaps they might not use a number of hours that justified the higher subscription fee.
Well, a neat report. The AOL thing, I'll sort of jump on that. It occurs to me, and I thought this some time ago, that in many ways AOL, and I've said this before, is sort of superior for interpersonal communication than the internet. The chat rooms in AOL are better than IRC. They have these things called instant messages that just pop up when you show them. The problem is AOL has this great big AOL network that is a lot of what they spend their money on, and they now have it so you can go through the internet. And I think that they ought to make it so that people can buy a very, very cheap access, assuming you have internet from someone else, not from AOL. I mean, have they done that yet?
In fact, they've incorporated that kind of an access where you use somebody else as your on-ramp,
right?
And you just want to get access to AOL.
Because I get free, of course.
Right, your internet access is basic. It's on your desktop already. And then you just use them as a content provider.
How much is that?
I believe that is $9.95 a month.
Now, actually, that starts to sound appealing to me.
So you might actually go and get AOL.
I might, after all these years of sort of, I mean, because it's so friendly, and you can meet people, and it's much better than the internet, which is very data oriented.
The other thing that's appealing about it is portability, because they have 800 numbers anywhere. When I was in Japan earlier this year, I could dial into AOL's global network very easily. Now, a cynic might say, though, let's look at this 1995 plan. Before it was, you'd pay $9.95 a month, and then after 5 or 10 hours, you'd pay an additional $3 an hour type deal. They have 7 million customers on their rolls. The question is, what percent of that 7 million customers is going to use enough time to justify the $19.95 a month?
I bet somebody at AOL knows the answer.
I bet somebody at AOL, I do not.
Yeah.
I used to be associated with AOL. I do not know the answer to this question. But let's say 1 million people weren't even going to sign on this month, and their bill just went up by $10.
Oh, you can't.
You can opt out. And 300,000 or 400,000 people have said, I want to go back to the basic plan. But by default, they put you in the 1995 plan, and this upset a number of customers.
The other story that was kind of jumped out at me was this credit card thing.
Yeah, this is something that I felt very strongly about for a long time, and your old colleague Chuck Henrich has felt strongly about. Everybody worries about encryption over the internet.
Nathaniel Borenstein, at First Virtual.
That's one of the points that Dr. Borenstein has made. But the real question is, what happens to the data when it's on the server? If I can break into that site that owns the data, and look up my own data or somebody else's data, that's where the problem is. And that's what happened. It was not
the bits going across.
Had nothing to do with solving the problem. So it's kind of interesting.
Neat.
In today's surfing segment, we're going to be going around the internet, as we always do in this segment, but there's a big difference today. We're going to be using the Java station that was kindly provided by Don Rogers, our Sun Microsystems systems engineer. And Chuck, you've got the first site ready. Where are we?
Right, we're at Northwest Airlines, and you and I both ran across this in the last couple of weeks. And let me show you something that's kind of neat. Where's the promotions one here? Is this under flight and travel?
Yeah.
Under promotions. You've talked before about e-tickets before, you know, about these quick e-tickets, but the thing that I found this thing called the Cyber Saver Fairs.
Yes.
And they were really intriguing to me because I couldn't figure out how to ticket these things, but they've got all these crazy fare sales. It's like, you know, tomorrow there's an empty plane, so you can be on it for $15 kind of thing. So we'll go to Cyber Weekend Fairs. Let's see, where am I going here?
Well, while we're waiting on this to load, there's a phenomenon in the airline biz referred to as having to do yield management, because the companies, if they fly a plane that isn't full or almost full, they're not making money. And so if they can do some price discrimination and get people who otherwise were not going to be disposed to fly at all to fill that empty seat, then it's pure gravy for them.
Right.
But they have to do it in a way, it's a very careful dance. They have to do it in a way where no business traveler
could possibly,
or somebody who's got a commitment to be somewhere could possibly ever exploit one of these.
So they got to randomly not do it sometimes.
And how can you do that in the traditional travel agent kind of a scheme? Well, you can't, but the internet lets you do it, because you can reach a wide audience of people, you can reach them directly, and as you were mentioning, thanks to the e-ticket, you can sell them the ticket directly. And so it's just a huge win for the airline.
I couldn't find the e-ticket, but here we have the cyber fairs, and we have the actual cities with shown. And I noticed that they don't sort of go long distances. It's almost like you have to be at a hub.
I think this is tied in a very sophisticated way into their yield management system, and it's only if this coming weekend, if it's looking like this flight's going to be empty, then they're going to start offering that fare. And I think they're changing it day by day, if not hour by hour.
But like, you can go to Chicago for the weekend for $69 from Detroit.
Round trip.
Round trip. I mean, I've done a one-day advance purchase to Chicago, and it's like $350. I mean, if you're in a... And it'd be fun for people, no kids, just to pop on a plane.
Sure, if you're retired, this is wonderful. You
just,
you just say, well, okay, this weekend.
Where? Yeah, where am I going?
Let's go to Albuquerque.
Buffalo. Buffalo is lovely this time of year.
You can go to Buffalo.
Las Vegas for $169. Memphis to Panama
Buffalo
City.
Wings, of course. You know, that's appropriate that you mention that.
Right.
So.
You can go from Minneapolis to Des Moines if you want.
That's exciting. Yeah. Well, enough free advertising for Northwest Airlines. We'll each take 5,000 frequent flyer miles. We'll give you our numbers later. Where else are we going to go, Chuck?
Well, I mentioned Myers. And
there's no S in Myers. They are not Myers. If you listen to their commercials, they are Meyer.
Meyer. Okay. So basically, this is the Meijer page, and I saw this in a flyer, and I thought, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, this is great. I can order milk at midnight, and they'll come deliver it to my house.
Only you would think that that's what they were up to.
Right. So they're selling sort of the the basic things, you know, selected cologne gift sets for men, fragrance. It's sort of the same things you can buy duty-free on airplanes when you're traveling internationally. And I was sort of, I mean, I'll admit that I was sort of disappointed about this. It's almost like, this is like the generic things that you sell on the internet, and Meijer says, oh, we'd like to have something to sell on the internet, so they can contract with this company that says, well, what we do is we come in and we sell some perfume and we sell some gift baskets. And so I was kind of disappointed with this.
Well, they got other stuff here. Look, they got store locator. They had employment.
Right. I expect a company like Meijer to be jumping on this and doing something above and beyond. And maybe that it will become interesting.
Yeah, okay. Let's go to java.sun.com if we can. And see if we can find out a little bit more about what they're saying about Java. Now this page that we're pulling down is kind of interesting. At the site java.sun.com, what you're going to get is a non-Java version of this page, and the reason is there are too many people that don't have good Java support in their web browser, and they were complaining that the page was unreadable. So this is a pure HTML page, and you'll see in the left here a little green thing that comes up and that says, hey, if you want a better page, try the Java version of this page. So a little bit of irony here that until we get good Java in everybody's desktop, Java's own site by default can't deliver Java.
Yeah, I mean, if I've got too much Java going in certain sites, and my Netscape on my desk at work on Windows NT, I can kind of crap out my Netscape after a while if it sort of sees too much Java. So I sort of understand exactly what you're saying there.
Let me tell you an interesting scam that Dr. Bill Punch, computer science prof at MSU, pointed out. I hadn't heard of this. Somebody has written a Java applet that does computation. And what it does is, you go and visit his page, and he wants to distribute the computation around the internet. And one of these deals of let's use the spare computing horsepower on people's desktops. So you just visit his web page, and he starts computing in the background on your machine using spare cycles, sending results over the net every once in a while, you know, to compute the next digits of pi or something like that. And this guy actually thinks that thanks to Java, that we could make better use of the world's total cumulative computing resources. So some people have some pretty cosmic ideas of where we're going to go with all this stuff.
Well, that's really interesting, because when we were talking with Don earlier in the show, we were talking about security and the fact that you don't let Java write to your disk, and you don't let Java read your disk, da-da-da-da-da-da. But they didn't say anything about they don't let Java use an hour and a half of your CPU time. So that is sort of interesting.
Okay, now we should get a navigation screen coming up here.
It's still coming.
Okay. Java on track.
Let's see. One of the sites we were going to track, this is Judy's site.
Ah, yes, this is the Michigan Electronic Library that we're going to.
Did I type it right? We shall see. There we go. So what kind of things are we going to find here?
This is a virtual library, and it's ultimately similar in some ways to what Yahoo is up to. It's sort of a public library view of all the world's knowledge as is available on the internet. And a friend of mine, Sue Davidson, who works at that evil school in Ann Arbor, is responsible for the collection on this. And my significant other, Judy Matthews, is one of their selectors, as they're known. And so a selector is somebody who has responsibility for part of all of human knowledge and going out and finding cool sites and adding them to the collection.
So where are we going to go in here?
Where it says go to the electronic library, let's click on that. So these are the general categories. Let's try science and the environment down there.
I was going to go to Internet, Computers, and Technology and see if your book was in this library.
We don't give away our books on virtual libraries. We haven't figured out how to make money doing that. So.
Okay.
And boy, there's just all kinds of cool stuff here. Environment and physics, all kinds of stuff.
Well, what would you suggest that we do?
I would
K-12 resources.
One of your favorite areas.
Always favorite K-12 resource.
And look at all this cool stuff.
Map skills, Mad Scientist Network. Boy, this is pretty neat.
Yeah, it is.
Well, actually, we're unfortunately about out of time.
So,
better go.
Do some more surfing next time.
Okay.
We'll see you on the net.